just some housekeeping rules. You may ask questions in the chat box to the right of your Windows screen, and then you can also raise your hand and I'll unmute you. So then if you have any questions, we can have you ask that as well. The content that we are presenting is designed to only be 15 to 20 minutes, allowing everyone to ask questions during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. The webinar will be recorded, and I'll send you a follow-up email with the recording as soon as I get it on my end. So lastly, this webinar is for your benefit, and we welcome any questions. Now, I'd like to introduce Eugene Alfaro, our CTO, and Mark Bauer, our Senior Microsoft Architect. So the floor is yours, guys.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for the introductions. Welcome, everyone. As Amy noted earlier, we really only have about 15 minutes of content we wish to share with you and open it up for a Q&A session, as we did in the first webinar we held this morning as well. We welcome those questions either through the chat box over on the right side, or raise your hand at the end of the session, and we will go ahead and unmute you so we can hear those questions. So thanks again, Amy. All right, well, Cornerstone was founded in 2007, but when we were really founded in the cloud era. In fact, when we first had gotten started, just within a couple of years, Cornerstone was already on board with moving into BPOS, which was at the time Business Productivity Online Services, which was the precursor to Office 365. Why do I say that? I say that only to note that our organization today, which focuses on deploying, designing, managing, and migrating workloads for our customers, we understand the need to migrate content to and from the cloud, as well as to and from an on-premise environment. That's really where our engineering experience and expertise comes into play, is helping you to be able to adopt the cloud services, applications, and systems so that you can get the most out of those investments. We focus really in three areas. One, cloud migrations messaging. Two, cloud enablement, infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, and identity access management. We have the ability to deploy, manage, maintain, and migrate your workloads into those environments, and always understanding the necessary security layers and providing services around each of those. But today's focus is primarily around Office 365. Why? Well, in October of 2016, Microsoft announced that they had a significant increase in the number of Office 365 commercial seats. They grew by 40% year over year from the previous year. By that time, they had approximately 85 or just over 85 million active users in Office 365. They've probably reached well over 95 by now that we've closed out 2016. So it's growing significantly. They are getting paid by many of the customers for those services and capabilities. However, are they getting the most out of it? And in the years that we've been assisting and serving our customers, we've realized and asked the question, are they really getting the most out of their service? Are they really getting the value back from it? Because Office 365 provides you a number of applications, a number of capabilities, whether it's the Office Suite on your desktop, whether it's Exchange Online, whether it's compliance and reporting, unified messaging, document control, online meetings, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, corporate social network, Office Online. Can we take a breath? Reading, broadcasting, IM and Skype, mobility and Sway, all of these capabilities are already in just the basic version of the suite most commonly purchased by our customers, which is referred to as the E3. Never mind what you get with E5. Now you add in business intelligence and analytics. Now you add PSTN calling and conferencing, cloud PBX, advanced threat protection. This is just a sample of all the capabilities that are there. So the volume of licenses and the volume of features are rich, but are you getting the most out of it? One of our competitors advertises they provide an assessment of customers' licenses with a particular focus in effective account planning and growth planning, quote, unquote. Hidden message underneath there, get you to buy more. That's not what we're focusing on. We want to help you to get the most out of what you already have so that you can stay ahead of your executives. CEOs and CFOs are coming to us and asking us the question, why aren't we getting the most out of what we've already purchased? You're going to get these questions if you haven't already. We bought this. Why aren't we using it? We need to cut costs. How can we leverage Office 365 so we can go ahead and use those services? Where are we spending money unnecessarily, such as duplication of services? We'll talk about that. So the point here is that there is a significant amount of capabilities with what many of our customers have purchased with Office 365 licenses or are planning to purchase if you haven't done so already. But to make sure that you get the most out of those capabilities, we want to provide you the guidance and services to do so. So I want to introduce Mark Bauer, who's on our staff and also happens to be a badged employee over at Microsoft and is our lead architect for Office 365 licenses. So Mark, you're constantly seeing these customers onboarding to Office 365, but oftentimes there's no plan for adoption.
Yeah, primarily what we see are people coming on for a particular workload. For instance, you'll have somebody, they're migrating or transitioning their environment for Skype for Business or for mail to move off the Exchange workload, because Exchange has such a heavy impact on your environment, whether it be servers or backups, the significant spend for servers and backups for Exchange. So a lot of people move that particular workload off, and that's it. They don't do anything with all the rest of the features that are available. You know, so we want to be able to go ahead.
So not only are they not doing or not getting the most out of the capabilities, but sometimes they're not even getting the capabilities of what they already have with all the constant updating that's going on in Office 365, correct?
Exactly. You know, for instance, this demo is from this screenshot is from the roadmap of what's changing in the service or what updates they're applying in the next 30 days. There's 88 updates rolling out. Does anybody know what any of those updates are? For instance, one of the updates
and many of our
that's rolling
customers
out,
just don't have the time. Right, our customers just don't have the time to keep checking it, right? How often do you recommend, Mark, that our customers actually check the portal to see what updates are coming down the pipeline?
This is one I try to check every day, because even working in Microsoft, there's updates coming out that I don't know about. So I need to stay ahead of that, because I have customers calling me saying, hey, what do I do with this feature? And we got it from the roadmap, and it's available to everybody. A lot of people don't even know about the roadmap.
Yeah, it seems overwhelming to check the roadmap every single day, and that's where our managed service has actually helped our customers and can continue to help our customers, because we are keeping an eye on the current capabilities of Office 365 for our customers. If and when these capabilities are improving and increasing, we can inform our customers not only because they're coming down the pipe, but also they might potentially impact end users, right? Can you call out a couple of examples, Mark, or an example of changes that have recently happened in Office 365 that affected the experience of the end users?
A real good example is Focused Inbox is currently coming out, and you can go and see the blog statement on that back in June, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, that it was coming out. But what they don't tell you is the little changes behind it that your users see, and it's happening and perking up in their environment. Users are now seeing archive folders put directly into their mailbox. That can be confusing for a user, because some of them have an archive folder and then they have an archive mailbox. Where do they put the stuff that's going to stay for an extended period of time? If they put it in the archive folder, it might get deleted. If they put it in the archive mailbox, it's going to stay there forever, depending on your retention period. So this can be very confusing for the users, and we want you guys to get ahead of that. And we want to provide that capability so we can help you get ahead of that curve.
Yeah, and we help our customers get ahead of that by keeping visibility on and keeping an eye on what those updates are that are coming down the pipe. But not only are new features coming in, but sometimes a feature that isn't yet enterprise ready becomes enterprise ready. Perfect example, we had a customer that we onboarded completely to Office 365 from 13 different countries, 6 different email systems, 9 different domains. And one of the capabilities that they wanted to leverage at the time in 2012 was eDiscovery, but it wasn't ready. Microsoft checked the box. eDiscovery was, quote unquote, available, but enterprise discovery or electronic discovery of email records wasn't really mature at the time, but they were paying for it, and the capability was there. However, fast forward to a few years later, really in about 2014, 2015, the eDiscovery capabilities are now available. So where are you spending money on eDiscovery on premises that you can now leverage in potentially your Office 365 environment? That's just one example of a feature that it became enterprise grade and could potentially displace the cost of other on-premise services. So Mark, any recommendations to our, go ahead.
Yeah, the Compliance Center has made huge leaps beyond what they had for just eDiscovery before.
Great point. Any recommendations, Mark, on how to move forward so that they can get the most out of what they have today?
What services aren't you leveraging? If you have services that you aren't leveraging, like for instance, ourselves, Cornerstone, we weren't leveraging as much Skype, and we've certainly leveraged into that now so that we can provide that.
That's a great example. We were leveraging Exchange Online to move our emails, but we weren't leveraging Skype for Business. We were using GoToMeeting at the time rather than Skype for Business. And Skype for Business is really ready today as an enterprise application for on-demand online meetings with a global team. So Mark, any other recommendation, or Mark's recommendations also discusses making sure that you introduce the new capabilities to your end users. And recommending a systematic deployment, right, Mark?
Exactly. You've got Exchange Online. What other features are you implementing that rely on that and overlay over top of that? Like, for instance, Teams, Planner, and there was a third one I had.
Or even business intelligence, Sway, and Dell. There's so many other new features.
Your mailbox and having the Outlook client and having SharePoint Online already, because those services span both of them. So how are you leveraging those, or are you turning them off in the meantime so that they don't get in there, your users get in there and do something they're not supposed to? How do you control the release of those? And then once you do release them, how do you plan for your customers, your users to use them?
And we provide that. What's part of our adoption roadmap and services. So we have a recommendation and a plan for maximizing your Office 365 and your Microsoft licenses, which you've already invested in so you can get the most out of those capabilities. First, we recommend that you take a look at your application landscape. And we don't mean application landscape for Office 365. That's evident, and we'll get to that shortly. But really your application landscape on-premise. What are you using for enterprise mobility management, for device management, for threat protection, for malware services? Take a look at all of those applications you currently use on premises that more than likely will have a capability already in your Office 365 suite that we want you to be able to take advantage of. So we recommend also that you find out your current annual costs. Be the hero. As we said earlier, don't wait for the CEO and CFO questions that we're constantly seeing come to our customers today. Instead, go to them already with an understanding of your current annual costs. We can actually help you with this. Because many of these services are those that we have deployed and resold to other customers, just simply have a conversation with your account executive on our side, and they can already give you an idea of how much you're potentially even spending without having to go to finance. How much would you be spending for malware services, for file systems, for meeting services, and so many other features today that could be transitioned to potentially your Office 365 capabilities. So be the hero by finding those annual costs and potentially displacing them. We also recommend that you assess what you're currently using. Like, we don't mean what licenses are you currently have assigned. We actually have, Cornerstone has a license assessment service that we'll provide to our customers. It's more than just a software management tool. Most software management tools out there takes a look at what's installed on desktops, what's being used on those desktops. We actually will take a look at the real-life utilization of those services. Just because you have 1,000 users on Exchange Online and 1,000 of them are enabled for OneDrive, how much are they actually using OneDrive versus the amount of files they're storing on premises? How many petabytes of data do you have on local file systems that if we were to transition you to OneDrive, how much could you displace in that cost and not have to pay all those renewals and upgrade of that SAN system? What about meeting services? How much Skype is actually being used in your environment? We can, through our license assessment service, identify what you've purchased, how much you've actually assigned, therefore available to the end users, but more importantly, what's the utilization? What are you getting out of those services today? And once we have visibility with you, once we give you the visibility to what you have in your environment, then we can also help to develop for you an Office 365 adoption plan. We have a number of adoption plans and roadmaps that we can assist you with to help you get the most out of those services today. In fact, it's been decided just recently that the first 10 customers from our collective webinars this morning, which we had a number of attendees at as well as today, will actually get the license assessment service for free. So simply make a request to your account executive or send an email over to Amy Toe, who's our webinar coordinator and marketing business development manager here. Simply let her know. We'd be happy to provide that license assessment service to you for free. We'll be able to assess what you have, what you're currently utilizing, what you're getting out of it, and what your potential cost savings are based on the recommended roadmap, so you can be the hero. You go to your CEO and CFO before they ask you the questions. Amy, let me go ahead and hand back to you.
Yeah, so great. Thank you, Eugene and Mark, for educating us on the Microsoft O365. Now it's time for the Q&A session. So if you look to your right, you can raise your hand in the box, or so I can unmute you, and then you can ask a question, or you can ask your questions in the chat box as well.
And I believe there were some questions already sent in, Amy, that we can get started with.
Yeah, so I'll ask the first question. Someone in the audience had asked, what's the estimate of spend on duplicate tools that I now have with O365 licenses?
That's a great question. So I'll give a range for our customers to get a general idea, because at the end of the day, it depends on what they're currently spending now and what feature sets they have. Just in the E3 licenses alone, if you take into account content management, enterprise mobility, document control, file systems and file servers, cloud storage, we're finding that our customers would be anywhere from $50 to $150 per user as far as what you're spending on the services already in some sort of environment. If you're even using some of the more enterprise-grade, high-class type meeting tools and conferencing, as well as PBX, you could be well north of $200 to $250 per user. So use that as a general metric to determine how much more you could save out of your current environment by utilizing and getting the most out of your Office 365 feature sets. Thanks, Amy, for that first question. Are there any other questions that were emailed out?
No, that's the only one that I have so far. Actually,
so let's go ahead and give the audience maybe a few more seconds to ask their question.
I do have one question. Someone had just asked, does a license assessment require on-premise software install?
Great question. It is a set of scripts and software. It doesn't require an installation, but it does require an execution on premises. We can run it for you in the cloud if you like. It simply needs your credentials. You don't have to install anything on a server. You don't have to provision a server. You don't even have to install an application on a desktop. You simply run the executables that we have, provided your Office 365 tenant privileges. It will provide the output and the data for our analysis, and will provide you a tailored result. Thank you for that question. Let's give a few more seconds for any other questions before we close.
Okay, looks like no more questions. So once again,
let me go ahead and just have a closing statement, Amy, and then I'll hand off to you. I want to thank everyone for attending. The goal here is to share with you that with the plethora of capabilities that you have likely invested in, we want to help you get the most out of what you've already invested in, so your business can increase its productivity, can be much more efficient, and more importantly, having worked in IT for 17 years, no longer face the questions from the CEO and CFO of why we're not utilizing X, but rather go to them with a plan to be that hero. Go ahead, Amy.
Great. So once again, thanks Eugene and Mark for educating us on Microsoft 365. And then we thank everyone for listening in, and we hope you have a better understanding of our webinar. Please be on the lookout for any future webinars through our LinkedIn or Twitter account. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I've emailed all of you, but again, my email is ato@cornerstonetechnologies.com, and this includes our ending of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Amy.